The WNBA just got hit with a financial bombshell. That's shaking the entire league from the commissioner's office to the locker room floor. Caitlin Clark, the golden name, the record breaker, the lightning bolt who single-handedly turned women's basketball into must-watch television, is now the face of the league's biggest scandal. She's generating hundreds of millions, but she's not seeing even a fraction of it. Less than $1 million a year. That's the number everyone's talking about. The number that's now haunting Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, the Players Union, and the entire system that's been exposed as broken beyond repair. Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier didn't just spark a debate. She threw a grenade into the heart of the WNBA, dragging Clark's name into a brutal pay war that's threatening to tear the league apart. This isn't about jealousy. This isn't about hype. This is about power, truth, and a generation of players realizing that the system built to empower women has actually been quietly cashing in on them all along. Collier went straight for the league's throat. In her Glamour Magazine interview, she said it loud and clear. Caitlin Clark has made the league insane money, and she's getting 0% of it. That quote didn't just go viral, it detonated. Social media went into overdrive. Fans, players, analysts, everyone's talking. How can a player bring in hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue through jersey sales, broadcast numbers, ticket sales, and brand deals, yet still earn the kind of salary that doesn't even scratch six figures? It's not a question anymore. It's a revolution waiting to explode. But what makes it even more volatile is the deeper web beneath it all. Because when Collier made that statement, she wasn't just targeting Engelbert. She was also sending a calculated message. One with layers of strategy tied to her own rival league, Unrivaled. And that's where this story turns from simple outrage into one of the most complex financial and political storms the WNBA has ever seen. Let's be real. Caitlin Clark has done what no one before her has. She didn't just elevate the WNBA, she rescued it from the shadows. Ratings up. Attendance breaking records. Merch flying off shelves. Entire arenas selling out because of one rookie. Every time Clark steps on the court, the numbers spike, the headlines explode, and the sponsors pour in. She is the most influential athlete the WNBA has ever seen, period. And yet, the pay gap between her and the profit she creates isn't just shocking, it's insulting. When Collier said she's making less than $80,000 a year while driving hundreds of millions in revenue, fans started doing the math. If this were the NBA or even a male athlete in a mid-tier international league, she'd already be a multimillionaire many times over. But instead, Clark's base salary sits beneath what some assistant coaches make in minor college programs. That's not a pay gap. That's daylight robbery. Collier knew exactly what she was doing. Her choice to name-drop Clark wasn't some random shout-out. It was a precision strike. Because Clark is the living, breathing proof that the WNBA structure is outdated. It's unfair and rigged in favor of the league's upper management and private investors. The WNBA's financial pie isn't simple. The NBA owns a massive piece. Team owners have their slice. And then there's a group of private investors who swooped in years ago when the league was struggling to survive. Now that Caitlin Clark has turned the WNBA into a gold mine, all those same investors and executives are fighting over who gets the biggest piece of the pie, while the players who built the value, especially Clark, are left fighting for crumbs. The system wasn't built for a breakout like this. It wasn't built for a superstar whose impact is so enormous it exposes every flaw in how money flows. The crazy part? Collier's not even hiding her dual motives. She's not just a WNBA player, she's a co-founder of Unrivaled, a direct competitor that's already made aggressive moves to recruit Caitlin Clark. She's a player, businesswoman, and a strategist. And when she publicly attacks the WNBA's pay system, it's not just for player rights, it's also free marketing for her own league. Every time she mentions Clark, Unrivaled trends. Every time she criticizes Engelbert, Unrivaled gains credibility. It's a genius play and a dangerous one. Because while her message about unfair pay resonates deeply, her motives are now under serious fire. Is she really fighting for equality, or just trying to build leverage for her rival business? That's the million-dollar question, and it's dividing fans and players alike. The tension exploded even more when Collier accused Engelbert of claiming that Clark's massive endorsement deals came only because of the WNBA platform. That comment, which Engelbert denies, lit another spark. Because if that's true, it means the league is trying to take credit for Clark's fame, her work, and her massive college-built audience. Clark didn't become a household name because of the WNBA. She arrived as one. The league didn't make her, she made the league relevant again. And that's exactly why players like Collier are furious. The system is cashing in on Clark's image but refusing to share the spoils. The jersey sales, the ticket surges, the broadcast deals all skyrocketed after Clark's arrival. Yet while everyone else's pockets get fatter, the athletes, including the one responsible for the boom, are being told to just be grateful. This isn't just a pay argument anymore. It's the start of a philosophical civil war inside the WNBA. On one side, you've got players demanding fair revenue sharing, the same kind of structure the NBA's had for decades, where players get 50% of the league's revenue. On the other, you've got management and investors insisting that the league can't afford it yet, that it needs to stabilize before offering that kind of split. But how long can you tell players to be patient when one of them is literally dragging the entire sport into mainstream conversation? The longer this goes unresolved, the more bitter the players become. Collier's comments are just the latest in a line of growing discontent. But they hit different because she aimed directly at the biggest name the league's ever had. And the thing is, she's not wrong about the money. The WNBA is making more than ever before. Ratings have doubled, sponsors are signing record deals, and for the first time in history, games are becoming sellouts in markets that couldn't even fill half an arena a year ago. Caitlin Clark is the reason for that shift. Every game she plays is a spectacle. The cameras follow her, the fans wear her jersey, and her presence boosts ticket sales in every city. When she got injured earlier this season, the ripple effect was immediate. Ticket demand dropped, streaming numbers fell, and fan engagement dipped across the board. That's not a coincidence. That's proof that she's not just a player. She's a phenomenon. And when one phenomenon carries an entire league, that league has to start asking hard questions about fairness. Yet the irony here is how quickly the narrative flipped. Not long ago, many WNBA players were irritated by all the attention Clark was getting. Some even downplayed her impact, insisting that the surge in popularity was about everyone, not just her. But now, when it's time to demand better pay, suddenly everyone is name-dropping her. Suddenly, Caitlin Clark is the proof. She's the leverage. She's the centerpiece of every argument. Players are chanting, "Pay us what you owe her." That says everything. It exposes how undeniable her influence really is. For months they said it wasn't just her, but the numbers never lie. And now, the same players who dismissed her spotlight are using it to negotiate for more. The hypocrisy is loud and fans are noticing. The deeper problem here is how this fight has gone public. Instead of closed-door talks or quiet negotiations, everything's spilling into interviews, social media clips, and viral debates. It's messy, it's emotional, and it's strategic. Because when players like Collier go public, they're not just fighting for a contract, they're waging a PR war. The WNBA's credibility is on the line, and the timing couldn't be worse. The collective bargaining deadline is reportedly just days away, and both sides are refusing to budge. Players aren't even reviewing the league's offers. That's how broken things are. What was supposed to be a step forward toward progress now looks more like a ticking time bomb. And behind all of it, behind the negotiations, the accusations, the rival leagues, is Caitlin Clark, who hasn't even said a word. That's the craziest part. She's in the middle of the storm, yet she stays silent, focused, and professional. She shows up to events, supports teammates, and continues to represent her brand like nothing's wrong. That silence speaks louder than any statement could. Because while others argue about her name, she's busy solidifying her place as the cornerstone of modern women's basketball. Her impact is undeniable, her influence unstoppable, and her presence unshakable. Whether the WNBA likes it or not, Caitlin Clark has changed everything. But this isn't over, not even close. Collier's firestorm is spreading. Players are picking sides. Executives are panicking. And the fans, they're demanding answers. The WNBA's pay structure, injury reporting, transparency, it's all being exposed under the harshest light possible. For years, the league operated quietly, comfortably, and without real public pressure. That era is over. The Caitlin Clark era has forced the truth out of hiding. And if the WNBA doesn't figure out how to fix this broken system fast, it might not survive the very success she created. The explosion didn't just stop there. It ripped through the internet like a shockwave, shaking every corner of the basketball world. Within minutes, timelines flooded. Hashtags erupted. And the story spiraled far beyond the WNBA. This wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a movement. A cultural reckoning wrapped in outrage, disbelief, and fire. Collier's words, raw, bold, and unfiltered, weren't merely an interview. Quote, they were a detonator. Caitlin Clark has made the league insane money, and she's getting 0% of it. 7 words that turned the calm before the storm into absolute chaos. The moment those words hit Glamour Magazine's feed, the WNBA's delicate balance between progress and politics shattered. Suddenly, everyone from casual fans to league executives was forced to confront a truth they'd long avoided. The system is broken. Caitlin Clark is the living, breathing proof of it. It started like digital wildfire. Within hours, clips of Collier's quote racked up millions of views across TikTok, Instagram, and X. Every sports podcast, every debate show, every online thread had one name on its lips: Caitlin Clark. Some framed her as a victim of corporate greed. Others as a disruptor powerful enough to expose a decades-old injustice. But all agreed on one thing: the WNBA had a crisis on its hands. Fans demanded answers. How could the league's most valuable player, the one responsible for record-breaking ratings, sold-out arenas, and historic merchandise sales, still earn less than a high school athletic director? The numbers were impossible to justify. For every jersey sold, every broadcast deal signed, every sponsorship expanded because of Clark's name, there was a glaring reminder that she wasn't the one profiting from her own success. And that contradiction, that sharp contrast between stardom and salary, became the heartbeat of the outrage. Sports analysts started crunching numbers live on TV. Clark generates around $200 million in total economic impact. One report claimed her salary is less than $80,000. The gap wasn't just shocking, it was insulting. It painted a brutal picture of how little control players had over their own worth. But beneath the outrage, there was another story, one even more complex, more strategic, and more dangerous. Because Collier's quote didn't come from a place of random frustration. It came from calculation, timing, leverage. Every syllable was part of a bigger play that few saw coming. When Collier went on record with Glamour, the WNBA was already standing on shaky ground. The league's collective bargaining agreement was weeks from expiring. Behind closed doors, negotiations had turned ugly. Players wanted a larger share of revenue, more transparency, and guarantees of long-term financial reform. The league's response: silence and delay. Frustration had been brewing for months, and Collier, a star, an Olympian, a respected voice, saw an opportunity to light the match. But she didn't just call out the league. She named Caitlin Clark, the one name powerful enough to make the world pay attention. And that's where the story twisted. Because Collier wasn't just fighting for fairness, she was also building a rival empire. As co-founder of Unrivaled, a new women's basketball league designed to compete directly with the WNBA, Collier had something bigger in mind. Her Glamour interview wasn't just an act of defiance. It was a recruitment pitch disguised as activism. Every headline about Clark's unfair salary made the WNBA look worse, and Unrivaled looked like the future. It was a genius move. Risky, but genius. By using Clark's image, the golden girl of women's basketball, Collier transformed a pay gap complaint into a viral global conversation about change. Suddenly, Unrivaled wasn't just a startup league, it was the revolution waiting in the wings. But with every revolution comes backlash. The league's front office was blindsided. Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, reportedly held an emergency call with her communications team within hours of the interview's release. Sponsors wanted reassurance. Team owners demanded damage control. The optics were disastrous. A star player publicly accusing the league of exploitation, while secretly backing its biggest competitor. Yet, despite the chaos, Collier didn't back down. She doubled down. She tweeted, posted, and reiterated her stance on multiple platforms. If you profit from our talent, we deserve to profit too. It was the kind of message that resonated far beyond basketball. It echoed the same sentiment driving women's sports, Hollywood strikes, and even political movements across the country. The public was divided. Some hailed Collier as a hero, the voice women's sports had been waiting for. Others accused her of opportunism, using Clark's fame to push her own agenda. But one thing was undeniable. She had forced the WNBA into the global spotlight. News outlets that rarely covered women's basketball were suddenly leading with it. ESPN ran a week-long special. The Athletic published an expose on player salaries. Even NBA stars started chiming in. If this were happening in our league, one veteran tweeted, the players would have shut it down already. That comparison struck a nerve. It made people realize that while the WNBA had marketed itself as a symbol of empowerment, it was still operating within the same old playbook. One that rewarded executives and investors more than the athletes themselves. Behind the scenes, insiders leaked that Collier's comments had created panic within the league's PR department. There were discussions about issuing a formal statement, even considering disciplinary action for conflict of interest. But that idea quickly died. The league couldn't afford another PR disaster. Fining or suspending a player for speaking out about pay inequity would have been suicide. Instead, Engelbert tried a softer approach. She gave interviews emphasizing ongoing negotiations and long-term player development, carefully avoiding direct mention of Collier or Clark. But fans weren't buying it. Every vague answer only added fuel to the fire. The silence was interpreted as guilt, and the internet made sure of it. In the meantime, Caitlin Clark stayed quiet. Her silence, though, wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Every media outlet wanted her comment, every camera wanted her reaction. But she gave none. She kept showing up, playing her game, and letting her performance do the talking. The more she stayed silent, the louder the world became on her behalf. Pay Caitlin Clark trended for days. Memes flooded timelines showing her jersey sales next to her salary. Even non-sports influencers joined the conversation, calling this situation modern-day exploitation. The movement wasn't confined to basketball anymore. It became cultural commentary about gender, economics, and value. Meanwhile, the players' union seized the momentum. Meetings turned militant. Younger players, many inspired by Clark's rise, started pushing veteran teammates to take harder stances. They wanted public protest, potential strike talk, and demands for a revenue split similar to the NBA's 50-50ths model. League officials scrambled to contain the fallout, but it was too late. The story had outgrown them. What started as one interview in a lifestyle magazine had now become a full-blown economic rebellion. What few people realized, however, was how deep Collier's strategy went. She knew Clark's fan base, massive, loyal, and digitally powerful, could be weaponized to amplify her message. By invoking Clark's name, she activated an audience far larger than the WNBA's usual reach. Millions of Iowa fans, Fever supporters, and casual sports watchers suddenly cared about something they'd ignored before: player pay. That's marketing brilliance, and it terrified the league. Because if Collier could manipulate public perception once, she could do it again. And in an age where image is everything, controlling the narrative meant controlling the power. The chaos even reached corporate boardrooms. Nike, State Farm, and other sponsors associated with Clark began reevaluating their public messaging. Were they indirectly supporting a system accused of underpaying women? Analysts started speculating about the potential economic fallout if sponsors sided with players instead of the league. If big brands start pressuring the WNBA, one insider said the league could lose control of its own story. That's the kind of tension that keeps executives awake at night. Because this wasn't just about salaries anymore. It was about the soul of the sport. The next wave of drama came when leaks from inside Unrivaled revealed that they had already reached out to several WNBA stars, including Caitlin Clark, with massive offers for the league's debut season. Rumor had it that the deals could exceed 7 figures, dwarfing current WNBA salaries. The message was clear. The old system pays you crumbs, the new system pays you your worth. Suddenly, Collier's motives made perfect sense. She wasn't just exposing the WNBA's flaws, she was positioning Unrivaled as the solution. The internet went wild. If Clark joins Unrivaled, one viral post read, "The WNBA might not survive." That sentence wasn't hyperbole. It was a warning. The WNBA had always prided itself on unity. Players standing together, promoting empowerment, sisterhood, and growth. But the Collier-Clark pay storm tore those slogans apart. Locker rooms turned into debate zones. Some players defended Collier's message but questioned her method. Others resented the attention Clark continued to receive, even as they fought the same battle for equality. The tension was palpable. Reporters described the atmosphere as fractured, cautious, even cold. The illusion of harmony had cracked, and through that crack, the world saw the truth. This was a league divided by its own success. But just when everyone thought that chaos had peaked, the story detonated again, louder, darker, and far more personal. What happened next turned whispers into war cries, and the WNBA's so-called unity era into a battlefield divided by money, power, and loyalty. Behind the polished press releases and carefully worded interviews, a storm was brewing, and this time, Caitlin Clark was standing dead center. Anonymous sources began leaking reports that several veteran players were furious with how the situation had spiraled. They weren't just upset with Collier, they were furious with Clark, accusing her of being the unintentional face of a movement she never asked to lead. Locker rooms grew colder. Tensions turned into silence. The same teammates who once cheered for Clark's record-breaking performances now saw her as the epicenter of every controversy shaking the sport. What began as an economic argument morphed into an identity crisis. Players who had spent years in the league fighting for every inch of recognition felt overshadowed by the rookie who had exploded into global fame in a single season. The jealousy wasn't always spoken, but it was there, lingering like static in every post-game interview. Reporters started noticing it too. Smiles looked forced, high-fives felt hollow, and team chemistry seemed fractured. "There's something off in Indiana," one analyst said during a live broadcast. "They're winning, but it doesn't feel unified." That statement opened Pandora's box. Soon, every detail of Clark's relationships with her teammates became tabloid fodder. Meanwhile, the WNBA's higher-ups were scrambling behind the curtain. Meetings grew tense as executives debated how to handle the fallout. Some argued that the league should publicly defend Clark, using her star power to stabilize the narrative. Others feared that taking sides would alienate veteran players who already felt neglected. The result? Paralysis. The league said nothing, and the silence made it worse. Every day without a statement allowed the internet to spin new theories that Clark was secretly negotiating with Unrivaled, that Collier and Clark had fallen out, that players were planning a walkout. None of it was confirmed, but in the age of viral outrage, facts didn't matter. Momentum did. And the story had unstoppable momentum. The tipping point came when an anonymous player posted a cryptic message online: "If the league won't protect its own, maybe it doesn't deserve to survive." That one post ignited panic. Was it a threat? A warning? Or the beginning of something bigger? Within hours, journalists linked the post to a rumored group chat among several WNBA players, discussing a potential strike if pay negotiations didn't progress. Suddenly, the league wasn't just facing a PR crisis, it was staring at a mutiny. And at the center of it all stood Caitlin Clark, silent, unshaken, and unintentional, the symbol of everything right and wrong with the modern WNBA, as the league tried to contain the fire. Clark's every move was magnified. A simple practice photo could spark 1,000 comments. A single press conference sigh could become a headline. She had become the league's most powerful and most vulnerable figure simultaneously. The Fever organization tried to shield her, but even they couldn't stop the storm. Rumors began swirling that Clark was being advised by high-profile sports attorneys, weighing her options about endorsement leverage and future contracts. If she leaves, one executive reportedly said the entire business model collapses. That wasn't exaggeration, it was reality. Clark had become the gravitational center of the sport, and everyone from sponsors to teammates orbited her. The most shocking moment came when leaked internal emails revealed that some